Awesome. So today we have a special episode on optimistic rollups with folks from Cashemere Labs, from Protocol, and XP.Network. So yeah, let's get started right away. We can do introductions going around and then hop into the topic at hand. So with that, I'll pass it off to you, Relic.
Hey guys, and thanks for the hosting this space. I'm Relic, the CEO of Cashemere Labs, and that's it.
Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about what Cashemere Labs does.
Sorry. So we are a cross-chain index aggregator built on layer 0. We're live on testnet right now, over 2 months now. Between 11 chains on testnet, from any to any asset between the chains, by using stables and by getting the best rates and staying MEV resistant.
Nice. And I was reading MEV, mitigating MEV is one of your specialties. So yeah, we'd love to dive into that and how some of the issues around that arise with optimistic rollups and other scaling solutions. With that, we'll pass it off to you, Jay Holmes.
Hey everyone, so I work on Perpetual Protocol's marketing team. So Perpetual Protocol is a decentralized exchange where you can trade perpetual swaps, but you can also earn yield with our new Hot Tub Vault product, and also through staking to earn a share of the trading fees. And thanks for hosting.
Awesome, thank you. And for context, are both of your products deployed on an optimistic rollup on Ethereum? Or what ecosystems, you're deployed on?
All right, so we're on Optimism.
Nice. What about y'all, Relic?
As I said, we are live on 11 chains, and since we are built on layer 0's infrastructure, we're a cross-chain aggregator and cross-chain dApp. Optimism as well, but many other chains like Polygon, Avalanche, Arbitrum, Phantom, Metis, Linea, Polygon, as again, ZK, EVM, and Mumbai, and BNB chain testnet.
Okay, awesome. Great. So let's start at a high level, defining optimistic rollups for the audience. So, Dima, who's CTO, looks like he's having issues joining from XP.Network, but would love from your perspectives as you describe to your users or to other folks optimistic rollups versus some of the other chains that you're deployed on. Yeah, would love to hear, how you think about it.
Yeah, I think it's really important on the we as a DeFi, we are trying to attract users by giving the best offers and reducing the cost. And in the reducing the cost part, it's extremely important, and to enhance user experience. And in the cross rollup interoperability, it refers to the ability to transfer the assets and data between different rollup chains. And so this can in the future, this can help users to expanding the scope, and for us to expand the utility of the rollup system.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely supporting various are important. I also see we have Dima that joined. Dima, if you want to do a quick intro on XP.Network, and your role there.
Hi guys, it's Dima from XP.Network, and we have already built the biggest NFT and SFT bridge in the ecosystem, and we keep building it. So we will keep joining more chains. We will keep integrating more projects. We connect a lot of EVM to a lot of non-EVM chains, which is quite unique because most of the other bridges, they either connect only EVMs or like one non-EVM to several EVMs. And most of the existing bridges, they concentrate their attention on bridging fungible tokens mostly. because they probably consider it more lucrative. We don't run for the money. We run for quality of transactions. And we do it not as a side project as it is for many others, but we do it as the main product that we bring to the ecosystem. Well, that's the brief introduction.
Nice. And you're deployed on multiple optimistic rollups on Ethereum?
Pardon, could you say it again?
And you're deployed on multiple optimistic rollups. Are you supporting Optimism, Arbitrum?
We support Arbitrum Nova for now because we right now are focused on connecting more non-EVMs to major EVMs such as Ethereum, BSC, and Polygon. But of course, eventually we will connect more optimistic and zero-knowledge rollups. That's our plan. But right now, we just want to do something different, something that others haven't done yet.
Nice. Yeah, that makes sense. The NFT is definitely a space where a lot of innovation could happen in terms of bridging. And yeah, to your point, a lot of the other solutions are focused on the fungible assets.
Yes, exactly. Because connecting an EVM chain is pretty much changing RPCs and just testing that it works, unless it's a semi-EVM like Tron that has different libraries and some protocols are not exactly like you would see on Ethereum. There are also several other non-EVMs that we have connected, such as VeChain, for example. It has a whole set of its own wallets and libraries. Actually, Tron also has its own wallets, and they are not compatible with regular EVMs. So that's why we call them semi EVM. Because why the EVM? Because they use Ethereum virtual machine, and you can write contracts in Solidity. But all the rest is different. Okay, so that's why they are kind of sort of EVM, but not exactly. And what we're doing is we're doing the hard job of connecting other protocols other than EVM, because connecting, doing the same thing on different chains is not so hard. It's pretty easy. But doing every time something absolutely new, something like every time we see a new protocol, it's like starting everything from scratch, as if we haven't known anything, because they have their own standards for tokens, their own standards for cryptography even. So for example, the wallets are not compatible, and you have to get used to everything, understand how it works, and only then you implement the bridge itself.
Yeah, that makes sense. And there seems to be a lot of trade-off between these different chains, and EVM versus other languages like Rust or Move is definitely a differentiator for people as they're deploying. Coming back to the idea behind optimistic rollups, I think this was alluded to, but there's two specific types. There's ZK and there's optimistic rollups. And to my understanding, and maybe others can chime in here as well, the best reason to do these rollup solutions is because Ethereum is very cheap, is very expensive, and has low bandwidth. So being able to increase the bandwidth and lower the cost by batching transactions in essentially an off-chain computing environment, and then essentially proving that those transactions happen on-chain either through fraud proofs, which optimistic rollups do, or through validity proofs, which ZK rollups do. And the main difference, to the best of my understanding, is that the fraud proofs essentially is inviting people to prove you wrong. So for a period of time, 7 days seems to be a standard. Anybody in the world can essentially prove that, hey, this is a false transaction. It's not, what was actually happening off chain. And then for ZK, you're essentially just proving that it did happen, and instead of having to prove that it didn't happen. So yeah, would love to, for the audience and from your perspectives as well, what are the main differences between the two types of rollups, and then what are the pros and cons? So why do one over the other? Yeah, maybe starting with you, Jay Holmes. Given that you're deployed on a specific optimistic rollup, I want to hear your thoughts on, why you went that direction versus others.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, as you mentioned, like optimistic rollups, they rely on like economic game theory and incentives, and this kind of solution was kind of built on Plasma, the research done previously I think around the time of like the ICO craze, like many years ago. So I think one of the main benefits is that they're simpler and not as sophisticated as zero knowledge rollups. But then the drawback of optimistic rollups is the like the finality time. You know, you have the 7 day withdrawal period. So as fault proofs, they take time to process. But then zero knowledge rollups, they rely on like cryptographic security. Yeah, some people call it like moon math. But yeah, there's a lot less people who fully understand that kind of aspect of it, and then it's relatively new cryptography. So I think that's why we've seen like optimistic rollups have a head start and kind of get this like first mover advantage. Because if you look at like the TVL across L2s, like there's two clear winners at the moment, and that's like Arbitrum and Optimism, and they basically account for like 80% of the TVL. So because of that kind of first mover advantage. So I mean, we're seeing a lot of progress in zero knowledge rollups, but they were a bit behind in terms of like market readiness, and then having the apps there ready for like people to use as well. Um, I say another kind of important point would be like the EVM, the Ethereum virtual machine. So I'm not sure about Arbitrum, but on Optimism, it's pretty much the same as it is on Ethereum. It's very similar. So it's very easy for like developers to come over from mainnet and build on top of Optimism. Whereas with like the zero knowledge rollups, the AVM model's slightly different. It's kind of in flux, and I think they don't have much support for like a general purpose like computation. So yes, that's a major difference as well. And then I'd say as well that like a robust zero knowledge system is kind of really hard to achieve. So it's based on like a ZK snark technology, which is really new and kind of like complex. So yeah, they're kind of I think they're kind of going for more of like the long term vision, whereas like optimistic rollups are like kind of like getting ready now for apps so they can help to scale. And yeah, I think like if you really go deep into like zero knowledge, there's like specialized circuits and trusted setup ceremonies, and this is just like all these are like additional complexities, and could be like potential security concerns like down the line. Um, but yeah, I think like which approach wins would be a lot would be based a lot on like whoever solves like the user experience and on-ramping problem. So I think that's why we're seeing like optimistic rollups kind of take the lion's share of the market at the moment.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% that the pragmatism of being ready today, even if it's a little bit more of a crude and simplified solution, means that Arbitrum and Optimism, as the first optimistic rollups, got a huge market share and competitive advantage there, being first movers. It'll be interesting to see whether ZK, something like ZK Zinc, can catch up. I guess theoretically, ZK is a more elegant and better scaling solution. But to your point, we need scaling today, and that's something that's provided by optimistic rollups, and it's done in a relatively safe way that already has a Lindy effect. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the space develops. Yeah, any more thoughts, Relic, Dima?
Yeah, I can jump in. I think we don't have to choose and expect one to be better than the other. I believe they will be coexisting in the future as well, since the optimistic rollups prioritizing the cheaper and faster transactions and scalability by it, and on the other hand, the ZK rollups prioritize the privacy and the security, and rather than see it, just one winner or not, it's in my opinion, we should expect that they will be coexisting in the future as well, with their own skills and what they do best. And we will be in the future. I think we will be seeing more and more projects and products to adapting the both in the future. So we will see how it goes by the adoption by the users, the easy to use, and developer support. Of course, we will see it by it.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you there. This is probably not a winner take all, and bridging solutions or multi-chain solutions as XP and as Cashemere, and eventually I imagine maybe Perp you might also look to deploy on other chains. But yeah, I think there's definitely not going to be a winner take all, at least is what it looks like now. But we'll see what the kind of like the power law distribution of adoption looks like. Maybe there's one that has most of the adoption, and then others follow on beyond that. And I agree with you. The user experience is very important. I think the one drawback the optimistic rollups have over ZK, which is a pretty big user experience setback, is the time period needed for the fraud proofs to take place. So I know that can be minimized or it can be set to a lower threshold, but I think you still probably need, several hours, if not days, to be able to be for sure that is not going to be proven incorrectly, the fraud proof, compared to ZK where it can potentially be minutes. It's like a huge advantage there. But yeah, other than that, I agree with you. It's probably not going to be winner take all. Go ahead, Dimitri.
I just also wanted to pop in. I think the time will be the final judge, which technology is better, if any is. And I'm sure that there should be competition of technologies. And it's great that we have at least several, not one, which is amazing, because exactly time will show what should stay, or maybe all would stay. We will see. You see this 7-day lag in optimistic rollup. It only happens when you communicate between the layer 1 and layer 2, right? But when you do something on layer 2, it doesn't have to take 7 days. It can be pretty much as it is on every other EVM. So for example, when we send NFTs to and from Arbitrum Nova, it happens very quickly, like, I don't know, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and your NFT is on another chain. Same, it goes back. So some protocols are impacted by this 7-day lag, where people have the time to either say that it's a faulty transaction or it's a benevolent one. But not everything is like this. Okay, so user experience can be good on optimistic rollups. While of course, like from my perspective, from the guy who builds something, it would be kind of scary, just to send some transaction and hope that it's good and nobody will try to abuse it. So for me, it feels kind of more secure with ZK zero knowledge rollups when you actually sign it. When there's someone, even though it's complex, and even though one of our colleagues said that it could introduce more bugs or more vulnerabilities, I absolutely, but still it kind of feels more secure. But it's great that we have at least 2 technologies, and potentially, yes, the game theory may win. Who knows? Maybe people will start acting more benevolently, and nobody's gonna abuse it.
Yeah, definitely. On the trade-offs, it seems like this is going the direction where, at least if you look at Ethereum and Bitcoin, like the most efficient or better user experience doesn't always win out. It's more so, where the network effect is in adoption. And to your point, within the layer 2 itself, the performance is really good, right? So it's relatively cheap and it's really fast. But then on the cross-chain use cases, or if people want to move value from L1 or from L2 to L1, that 7-day lag is definitely, very inconvenient and potentially expensive, especially for trading firms or liquidity providers, because that's capital that's locked for that period of time without being used. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it plays out. Maybe, if one of these optimistic rollup solutions becomes big enough, then essentially all the computing and transactions move there, and maybe relying on third-party bridges might be a solution as well, moving between these. Maybe a question for Relic or you, Dimitri, is what does the user experience look like when bridging through a third-party bridge as opposed to going through the native bridges? Is it still 7 days, or are there are there ways to make it go faster, or work around the 7 day time period?
Well, I only had experience of actually bridging to an optimistic rollup between Godwoken, I think, which is also a layer 2, on Nervous, which is layer 1, non-EVM. And it really takes 7 days if you send it. So like when we were deploying the bridge and the contracts and everything, so in order to get our tokens on Godwoken, we first had to get them somehow on Nervous, and then had to wait for 7 days for those tokens to arrive to Godwoken to actually start doing something. Of course, it was super bad. We just lost a week of work that everything could be done like a week before we received the tokens. But once you have it there, then it's pretty fast and pretty cheap, like you said. So sometimes it causes problems, but in general, like if you know about this thing and you plan things in advance, basically you can overcome it. Of course, if you want to send it back to Nervous from Godwoken, for example, again, it will take you 7 days. But you don't have to send it back and forth. You have applications that reside here on layer 2 chain, including DAXs and SEXs, and you can use everything here pretty quickly, and it doesn't cost you much. So I think the time will also select which applications will live on layers 2, which applications live on layer 1, and how they will be connected. So this is going to be just adjusted gradually. And what I also can say about layer 2s in general and optimistic and ZK knowledge is that we all saw how congested Ethereum was, and when Polygon just appeared as a layer 2 of Ethereum, everybody said, it's so fast, it's so quick. And I understood from the beginning that pretty soon it's going to reach the same point that is going to be slow. And the transactions didn't go up, but it became super slow and congested as well. Polygon itself, I mean, not its zero ZK EVM. Okay, so basically, when more people are engaged in Web3, of course, we need infrastructure to accept all those transactions. And it's great that we have so many chains that allow us to have the transactions and not be congested on the mainnets. Mainnets meaning like layer 1s.
Yeah, it's interesting how individually each of these chains can scale to maybe a few thousand transactions per second. Obviously, the L1's not that high, but if we do have millions of users, it's going to be very hard for any decentralized app to rival a centralized exchange app in performance. Due to just literally the server capabilities, right? Like these servers can't maintain more than a few thousand concurrent users trying to send transactions at the same time. That's why it gets so expensive. But yeah, kind of curious to hear from that perspective what decentralized apps, decentralized exchanges, maybe perpetual protocols or perpetual exchanges, will compete against the centralized exchanges. Like, is the optimistic rollups and these other scaling solutions enough, or what is it going to look like in 10 years? And I think Jay Holmes, you'd be a good candidate for this question.
Yeah, sure. So there's like it's a hard challenge to solve, like for decentralized exchanges to like match centralized exchanges, but it's worth doing. And with the advances coming in on L2s, it's definitely possible. And there's like a lot of interest in experimentation going on and progress being made towards that goal. So I think we're currently at a stage where on-chain trading has its own kind of benefits and advantages, and we're still in kind of the early stages, as well as like for L2s in general. But yeah, there's different trade-offs between centralized exchanges and decentralized exchanges. So the centralized exchanges have like lower fees and usually better liquidity, but there's also the question of like KYC, and you don't hold your own keys, so they're not your coins. And then there's the opaqueness of like the solvency and operation of the exchange. So like, do they have enough to like survive like a bank run, or do they trade against their customers, or will your personal details be leaked online? So yeah, I think right now I'd say like it's like DeFi power users, people just really care like about the decentralization, the principle of like decentralization. Users who want to experiment with like trading on chain, and like programmatic traders, and then maybe some like privacy-minded people. They're like the main users of like decentralized perps right now. So I think, yeah, like, and then for like centralized exchanges, it's more like, just like noobs and people just getting involved in the space, and people who, don't really care that much about decentralization. So I think it's all about giving people like better choices. But I think even in the future, like even once decentralized exchanges can match centralized venues in terms of like liquidity and fees, like people are just gonna have their own kind of trade-offs and make their own choices. So, even though it's like more transparent on chain and it's more decentralized, you don't have to like give up any sensitive details. Yeah, I think people will still kind of use centralized venues even in the future. So yeah, I think also as well like there's like more innovation as well on like the on-chain and decentralized exchanges as well. So there's like DeFi can introduce new products and innovation. So like one example is like Power Perpetuals. That's like an innovation that's come out of the DeFi space. There's also like several DeFi protocols working on like trustless volatility futures, and they're not even widely available on centralized exchanges. Like really, there's just like one really. It's just there a bit, but yeah, there's protocols like Smiley, Volmex, Diatomics, and they're working on some interesting perpetual designs as well. So yeah, I think as well like the composability is important. So it's like you could build tools on top of Perpetual Protocol, for example, because it's like open source code, and because it's built on optimistic rollups, you have that property where anyone can come in and kind of like build like new products on top. Yeah, so that's kind of like my kind of perspective on it.
Yeah, I think the composability part is a huge benefit of decentralized versus the centralized. The fact that you can take positions from an exchange, for example, and then use it as collateral or another application. Unless the two applications, maybe like a Coinbase and a Kraken connect, you can't really do that on centralized exchanges. So that's a huge benefit, and everything else that you've mentioned around it being self-custodied. You don't really trust decentralized institutions to manage the funds appropriately, et cetera. It's definitely, huge advantages of decentralized. But yeah, to your point, until the user experience is there, it's probably not going to get adopted by the noobs, as you were saying. Yeah. So I have two questions kind of following up from that. Just quickly, what are these power perpetuals that you mentioned that seemed interesting? And then the second question, maybe to throw it out to everyone, is what is missing for these noobs to go into DeFi first? Why are they going into centralized exchanges first versus entering through DeFi? Like what is missing still from the user experience? So yeah, maybe just real quick, Jay Holmes, on the power perps, and then we can move into the other question.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So power perps are just basically, a normal perpetual, you're trading the price of an asset, price of ETH, but then with power perps, you're trading the squared price. So it's the payoff basically is non-linear. So, a $1 change in price leads to a more than $1 change in your profit. And then, yeah, concerning the why people are more attracted to centralized exchanges, I think just because, they're more established, they've had a longer history as well, and then, they've probably heard like, someone they watch on YouTube or whatever talk about like a centralized exchange and, shilling a ref link or whatever. But I think it depends on like the obstacles in front of people. So sometimes like perpetuals are not available depending on where you live. So these users would be more geared towards using decentralized exchanges. Whereas yeah, if that obstacle's not there, then yeah, you'll just kind of default to like a centralized exchange. And I think they've just got they're just bigger brands and they've just got more. There's more awareness and yeah, they just have like a longer history.
Yeah. Any other thoughts? Yeah, Dimitri, go ahead.
Yeah, well, centralized exchanges are good from the user experience, at least from mine, but they're pretty dangerous also. Because just think about it. What happens if this one guy or one team one day decides to either become malicious and steal all this money, or they will just think, ah, it's no longer interesting for us, so we just drop it. Okay, or maybe they get hacked. Well, they get hacked is relevant to any kind, even decentralized, or probably even more to decentralized, right? Or for example, what happened with Binance, they got a lawsuit from the United States right now, right? And who knows where it's going to lead, right? What if one day somehow the American government, I don't know if it's even possible, but what if they know how to, because I don't, how to stop it, but maybe they'll find a way, just to one day stop Binance, right? And what if you already have lots of assets there? What if all your business is turning around this exchange? What are you going to do, right? So of course it makes a lot of sense to diversify your risks and to go to different service providers, even though maybe they're less user friendly, but still at least part of your assets will be safe when something happens with this centralized thing. And so I think anyway the future is with decentralized solutions, while centralized solutions are just a necessary step when the technology wasn't there for the completely decentralized Web3. We just had to go through this step. Okay, so for decentralized solutions, just have to work more on the user experience, have to test it more, have to add more services that the users can get from centralized ones, and the future is theirs. That's what I'm sure of.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'll also caveat though, or kind of play devil's advocate a little bit, that even decentralized protocols or architecture need to be implemented correctly for them to be truly immutable or censorship resistance, or you know, uh, yeah, essentially, yeah, immutable from bad actors that are human. So I think one example is going on currently right now is the multi-chain bridge, which it's technically a smart contract, but it seems like the setup was done in a way where this one person had too much control of the protocol, and now seems like funds are being drained. So that wouldn't be too dissimilar from a centralized exchange, except I think the benefit here is that it's all done on chain, so at least it can be tracked and people can be aware as it's happening. But yeah, something to think about there. But yeah, Relic, any thoughts on centralized exchanges versus decentralized?
Yeah, I think most of the users, even us, are here to make money in the first step. So the centralized exchanges are the first step and first easy step, because people are familiar with stock market before, and they know how the exchanges work. So in DeFi we also need it, in my opinion, because it's easy to learn, easy for user experience, and most of the people who just starts to dig in the DeFi and cryptocurrencies basically are here to make money, and they will explore later. After they bought something, they buy something on Binance or some other exchange, then they will start to explore what the currencies that they bought are be used for. So, in any case, we will be needing in the centralized exchanges in the future. We just, in my opinion, need to be more clear as products about what we do really, and what does our tokens work. What is the purpose of it? Why we have launched it? And after that, they will start to explore how they can use it, how they can use DeFi, other than just transferring money. And at that point, I think decentralized exchanges will be more adopting by users. Hello.
Oh, sorry. I might have been on mute. Yeah. I was saying that essentially, I think one other benefit that centralized exchanges have over decentralized exchanges is the token pairs. So you can do these quote unquote cross chain swaps. So for example, Bitcoin can be paired against Solana, or ETH can be paired against, you know, Aptos, or other L1 tokens. And I imagine that people might be holding mostly ETH or Bitcoin, or some stable coin as a store of value, but then they still want to access all these other alternative coins. So yeah, kind of curious to hear what the user experience looks like for decentralized solutions that do this. So I think Relic, your exchange, very much specifically does this. So yeah, kind of curious to hear, what the trade-offs are there for users of decentralized exchanges that, want to, or for example, hold ETH and they want to get exposure to Solana or do some other, cross-chain interaction. If you're on Binance, you can easily do that. But what does that look like for decentralized ecosystems?
Yeah, the bridging and crossing experience was actually basically troublesome for the users because they will be having we were having the problem of finding the pathways, finding the liquidity, the waiting times up to days, sometimes just for a simple transaction, or being it just not cheap and just expensive because of the inefficient liquidity usage. So how we try to solve is we are trying to leverage the stables that are being most used by the users, such as USDT and USDC, and we are trying to leverage those pools that we have to attend the to get access to public pools and make it possible to make transactions between the chains from assets to assets by using the public pools within just minutes. So how we do it, since we have the liquidity in all of the chains that we are integrated to, which are the layer zero chains, instead of just bridging the tokens by using our both pools on the both chains, we are making it much more faster. And instead of actually bridging it, we are just using the messaging protocol of layer zero to let the other chain about the first transaction and just get to the user what he wants to swap to. So I'm just trying to make it a smoother experience and be resistant to attacks during the process because cross chain be extremely dangerous. The bridging can be extremely dangerous also. So we are also trying to prevent the MUE attacks during the process with our slippage calculator system that we have generated to find the optimum amount of slippage to prevent the MUE attacks, because after some point it also gets unprofitable for the attacker as well, and that's how we do it.
What does that user experience look like for someone that that uses your application? Let's say like I have ETH and I want to trade for something on Solana. You mentioned that you do a message pass first. What does that enable you to do, or just specifically, what does the user go through as they're for example, what's the waiting period? What do they see on their screen, etc.
Yeah, thanks. So the waiting period is mostly 1 to 4 minutes on mainnet. On testnet, it can be stuck by sometimes because of the traffic of the users, and testnet chains can be not so stable all the time. But just by choosing the networks that they want to trade between with, and to they're just choosing the token and just choosing the chains, and we are doing the rest. As I said, we are using our own stable pools to make it happen, such as USDT and USDC, by getting the best offer from both destination chain and source chain for them. So instead of using the first aggregator on the source chain that they are in, and then just trying to cross the stable that they have, and then buying another token with another aggregator in the target chain. We're just doing it in a simple transaction within 1 to 4 minutes with just 2 clicks in total.
Okay, that makes sense. And then the stable pools are set up both on the destination and source chain, and they're on your exchange. So I guess the exchange itself might take on the risk of there potentially being some rollback during that period of wait time, I guess, that the message is passed and it's like confirmed, right? Is that how I'm understanding it?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, that's right.
Cool. Yeah, that seems like a trade-off, to enable something that's trustless, but it'll take a little bit more time, and there's still some assumptions that need to be made there. Awesome. So looking through the questions that were user submitted, this one's interesting. So when people think of rollups or these ecosystems in general, they think mainly about DeFi. But kind of curious. I know we have Dimitri, and I think Cashemere also put out some NFTs. But what does the NFT market look like in these chains versus the existing L1s? So kind of curious to see what NFTs look like versus DeFi.
Hey. Okay, so first of all, we are building the bridge to help the blockchains boost their NFT ecosystem, because we believe that without NFTs, the market is not complete. So we see it like this. There are fungible token liquidities. This is like, right? And there are many markets where you buy money for money, where you stake money for money. And basically, it's a market of money. But how long can it last for this market of money to generate more money out of nothing? We believe that a healthy market needs goods or services to be exchanged, bought, or sold with the money. So the money should be a tool of getting some benefits, most probably even in the physical world, eventually. Not right now, but eventually we'll get there. And so we see that many other dApps, they don't pay so much attention to NFTs, because many people, even in Web3, believe that NFTs are purely a tool of speculation, which it is in many cases, but not only. So we see NFTs as a possibility of instant ownership registration, which is public, which is verifiable 24/7 by anyone. And this is the major part why it has value. So once you stop creating NFTs of just cards that have no utility, and you start locking or proving with NFTs ownership of something really valuable, then everything goes to its places, and you understand why it's so important to have NFTs on every blockchain. Without NFTs, you basically have a market without goods or services represented by those NFTs that can be used as tickets, for example, for anything, for a concert, for a sports game, whatever. Right? So eventually we'll get there when many things will be registered as NFTs, including house bonds, including contracts for buying or selling a car, and so on. There is also another problem, of course, when you purchase or sell something expensive as a house, for example. It's very important that the judicial system of the place where you are will support you when you say, hey, the proof is this hash on a blockchain and this NFT, right? So because there is no legislation, we can't freely sell property as NFTs, but eventually we'll get there, and then anything would be able to be sold by would be able to be bought and sold and transferred from one chain to another as NFTs. And therefore, this is why we're building this bridge. So we understand that currently the market is neglecting this opportunity, is neglecting NFTs as something serious, and that's why we're building this, because we believe in this technology, and we see more and more projects that also start thinking the same. We see that, like, everybody starts speaking about decline of NFTs right now because there was this NFT sold for $69 million. You know, it created a lot of hype. Everybody started buying NFTs, and then they realized, okay, these are just images. Okay, images with hashes. So what's about it? And you know, that's why we observe a little decline right now, but it's very, very good. It means the projects that have no utility in the physical world, they will move from the market, living the way, or like paving the way to the projects with utilities. Like yesterday, we spoke with one project. They already have a very successful agency for patents. For example, I don't know if you are aware of this, but for example, if you live in some country and you've invented something really cool and you want to sell it in another country, but you're afraid that your technology will be stolen there and somebody will just start earning instead of you, it's a big problem for such highly technological companies. And then if you actually want to start selling your product over there, you have to find some lawyers who know the local laws and who will actually find some patent agencies over there. And then you will submit your patent. You will have to wait like for a year or so for it to be adopted there. And only then your rights will be protected. Right? But all this thing can be done pretty much instantly through a blockchain. And you won't have to pay to several middlemen to do that. And the guys who we spoke yesterday, they have a successful project where they platform where people peer-to-peer, pretty much like blockchain, already work and buy and sell licenses. And right now they want to migrate to blockchain so that it becomes instant and verifiable. Well, this is the real application of NFTs. And this is where once people understand what really we have in our hands, they will stop thinking of NFTs as tools for swindling other people, where one fool sells, another fool buys, and they will understand that they have a real, serious technology that allows peer-to-peer communication or peer-to-peer interaction, where you actually don't even have to trust each other, but the blockchain does the job for you, replacing all the centralized third parties.
Yeah, definitely agree that NFTs are undervalued and underutilized for all their potential use cases. Yeah, I think backing of more complex financial products and real world assets, like for example, mortgages, bonds, maybe like art, physical art, could be great use cases for NFTs. And yeah, excited to see how that plays out. I guess, yeah, any other thoughts on how the NFT ecosystem is developing on, you know, these L2s versus, or optimistic rollups versus, you know, the existing L1s? I think one example of, you know, a success story is maybe Polygon, although that's arguably maybe not exactly a rollup. But yeah, just kind of curious to hear thoughts from others on this, on NFTs and optimistic rollups.
Yeah, I just want to add in something quickly. So yeah, on Optimism, there's like a thriving kind of NFT scene. So yeah, it's not just like PFPs and stuff like that, but also there's like Mirror, which is like a decentralized blogging platform, which basically introduced like writing NFTs. So you can like literally like write a post and then you can like either donate money to a cause or try and like earn some money yourself if people find it useful. Yeah, and then there's like music NFTs as well that are launching. Yeah, so it's kind of just like broadening out the use cases. At least from what I've seen on Optimism, I'm not too up to date on like the whole NFT scene in general, but yeah, I just wanted to add that in.
Yeah, I think because the costs are so much lower, people are able to do other activities other than speculation. Like, yeah, use this for listening to music or maybe accessing digital content. Yeah, because if you only have to pay a few cents in transaction cost versus, I don't know, a few dollars, it makes a huge difference, right? Like, imagine if you had to pay Ethereum fees every time you want to see a Netflix show, for example, or you want to listen to a
Right.
song on Spotify.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's why I think, these roll-up solutions definitely unlock a lot of interesting use cases. I haven't seen too much activity from, I guess, NFT marketplaces on the L2s, me personally, but I'm not super deep in that space. But yeah, if others can talk to that, would definitely be curious.
There are a few projects that we're also speaking about right now. They have they've created platforms where people can lend or borrow NFTs in a decentralized way, or where people can lend or borrow money while NFTs are collateral in this process. And of course, they are with cheap and fast transactions for the users to be able to do a lot of operations rather than, you see, if the transactions are expensive, it limits the market to only big amounts of money or very expensive things that can be bought and sold, because otherwise it won't make sense. So eventually, probably, everything expensive is going to happen on Ethereum. Everything where you want to be absolutely sure that this chain is not going to close down tomorrow, or something is not going to happen, like, the American government is not going to poison the team and won't close Binance or something. And everything less expensive, like if you're not selling a house, if you're not selling a car, but if you're, I don't know, selling something else much cheaper, of course it will go to cheaper chains. So probably the market will be just spread differently. And of course, you buy houses, and how many times if you buy something else, right? So there is a lot of room for layer twos, layers two, and specifically ZK rollups or optimistic rollups. And that's a great example of Polygon. I also wanted to say it. I just was too excited speaking about the role of NFTs, and then I forgot the question. And of course, Polygon is a great example. Eventually, sometimes if you just look how many NFT transactions you have on Ethereum and on Polygon, on some days you will see that on Polygon you have more because it's cheaper, right? And there were only 3 chains. You remember at the beginning of OpenSea, there was only Ethereum, and then they also connected Clayton and Polygon, and that gave a huge boost to Polygon. And it wasn't so important for the NFT projects to be on Ethereum anymore, because the reason they were on Ethereum was because of the OpenSea, the biggest marketplace at the time. And once OpenSea started connecting more and more chains, less and less it was important for projects to be on Ethereum, because basically you go through the same marketplace and then you don't care. Of course, you care more that you don't have to pay such huge fees as you did on Ethereum. But actually, Ethereum understood the problem. The guys understood that users and projects are going away to other chains, and they recently, I noticed that they substantially reduced the costs. Like, for example, I remember when we started deploying the bridge on Ethereum several years ago, I think we spent something between $10,000 and $12,000 just to deploy the contracts on Ethereum. And now sometimes I deploy contracts for like $50, $70. Of course, maybe they are less heavy than the contracts we deployed then, but still, usually like maybe half a year or a year ago, I deployed such contracts something between $200 and $300. And now it's around $50, $70. So there is a big reduction. But still, it's not cents like it is in Polygon or Optimism or Arbitrum.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, as you were saying, potentially the use cases just start to settle in based on how people are using these. So I imagine if you're using as a store of value your NFT, maybe you want that to be on Ethereum so that it's, censorship resistant, immutable. But maybe if you're doing some transactions that need cheaper fees, maybe you roll up to Arbitrum or Optimism, or go to something like Polygon, for example, and then the transaction fees for that would be cheaper. I think even like OpenSea was using a version of this where you could essentially place bids on a roll up as opposed to the Ethereum layer one because it was becoming too expensive. But I could be wrong there. So I know we're running on time. So maybe to wrap, any final thoughts on optimistic rollups, rollups in general, or even multi-chain? I think was also a good theme of this. How the space will develop into multi-chain. So yeah, any parting thoughts before we wrap this up? I'll start with you, Relic.
No, I actually have to go in a minute, so I don't have any more comments on that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, any other final thoughts or parting thoughts?
Yeah, I just think optimistic rollups. I think they're going to be like the main kind of rollup solution that's going to be dominant in the kind of next year or two. And I think hybrid rollups. So we kind of touched on it before, like the pros and cons of zero knowledge and optimistic rollups. But I think hybrid rollups as well is like a thing to like keep an eye on. So it's basically like kind of combining the two, and then with Optimism's like recent Bedrock release, that kind of opens up that kind of design space. So yeah, it's just like combining the simplicity and flexibility of optimistic rollups, and then they could basically be like transformed into zero knowledge rollups, give it enough time, and if they kind of prove themselves to be like a market ready and a lot more usable. And yeah, I just think yeah, like what Optimism's doing is really interesting. Like what if you look at like Bedrock and the super chain, and with like Base launching really soon. I think like in August there's going to be like a mainnet launch, and yeah, it's just going to be like a huge catalyst for Ethereum and Optimism as well.
Any specific hybrid ones to look out for that you know?
Yeah, so basically like the Bedrock basically is like the first launch of the OP stack. So that's kind of like that's going to be like the main hybrid one. But I also think like Frax recently announced they're launching like a layer 2 Frax chain, and that's going to be like a hybrid roll up as well.
Cool. Yeah, I'll take a look. Yeah, definitely the multiple proving systems, something I saw on Bedrock. I think Arbitrum is doing something similar too. Yeah, any parting thoughts, Dimitri?
Yeah, well, if you just go to DeFi Llama, for example, and you click chains, you will see, if you look at the first 10 chains, you will see that out of them, 3 are rollups: Arbitrum, Optimism, and Mixin. And actually, Optimism is like 2% of the entire market. Arbitrum is almost 5% of the entire market. Mixin is like 1% of the entire market, which means people already trust in this technology, so that they believe in this technology. And I think Arbitrum occupies a place higher than the others, just probably because it appeared higher. It started like sooner. And the others will catch up. We also saw that at the beginning, Ethereum was almost 1, like if we don't count Bitcoin, which doesn't even have smart contracts, right? So like if we look at Web3 as we know it, it was only Ethereum. And then gradually other chains started evolving, including rollups. As soon as Ethereum started lagging, started being congested, people started to look for solutions, how to solve it. And layer 2 solutions is one of the ways. Even according to Vitalik Buterin, to his paper, even though he says that it's like a lame way of solving the problem and the real way is sharding, I think he said that because He just didn't want the users to go to other chains, like frankly speaking. I don't think it's like a really lame way of solving the scalability problem. It is a normal way because the chains are live, they work, trust in it. And sharding is great, of course. Like some sharded chains, they are harder to implement, harder to understand how they work. Like recently we connected Near, it's also sharded, and it's the first time when I saw that one transaction can be finalized in 3 different, and you have to check 3 blocks to understand whether your transaction succeeded or not. And of course, the contracts that you write, they have to be written in such a way that if at least on one of the blocks it breaks, you have to revert everything yourself manually. While on EVMs, it never happens because everything happens inside one block, and something fails, all the transaction revert. Right? So it's a whole different way of thinking. And it is hard, but then it's fast. So I think the future is in different technologies, and like the evolution, time will tell which one is successful and which one is not.
Yeah, that makes sense, and it'll play out as people adopt these different technologies for different use cases. But yeah, and with that, yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thank you to our speakers for this fruitful conversation, and yeah, hope to see you all soon.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for hosting.
Thank you. All right.
Thanks
Take care,
to the
everyone.
host. Thanks for the great MA. Thanks to the listeners. Goodbye.